Oh, hi there, this is Chandra Easton from StarAstrologyHealing.com, Living in Light. I'm here to talk to you today about the next month as the Sun enters into Libra. This is a teaching part of the series of teachings called 2020, the Year of Decision. It's such an important year that I've been looking at the patterns that occur as the Sun enters into each zodiac sign one by one. And of course, if you're a Libran, or if you have Aries, Cancer or Capricorn, the other signs on the cardinal cross, this may well be very relevant to you, but it's also important information for everybody. And what I'm covering here are the three themes I'm looking at. I'll be talking briefly about the Festival of Light, the Archangel Michael Festival on the 29th of September. I'll be then talking in some detail about the patterns that I see in the Ingress chart. This is as the Sun enters into Libra. This is the autumnal or the spring equinox. And then I'll be following on by discussing the Hercules myth of the esoteric teachings and the lessons associated with the sign of Libra. Okay, so let's commence. Let's talk about what the sign of Libra is all about. It's the halfway point, Libra, between Aries and Pisces. It's a resting point, but it's also a point of balance in the year. It's a time for justice. This is cosmic justice, spiritual justice, worldly justice. And the most important time as the Sun's moving through Libra is the 29th of September. And this is the watershed. The culmination used to be known as the All Angels Festival, where humanity, those of us who work with the light of our soul, work to align with Archangel Michael and the entire angelic host. And in the week leading up to this is the week commencing on the 23rd of September and culminating on the 29th. This is what we know in the Maitreya Theosophy tradition. That's maitreyatheosophy.org or heartflow.org or Theosophical Fellowship. These are the websites that hold the teachings of Lady Ananditara Sharma, and it is from her teachings and her inspiration that I understand something about the Archangel Week. And what happens is that every day in the lead up to the 29th, commencing with the 23rd, we're moving through a different frequency. So we're working with the principles of law and order and Archangel Zadkiel and Lady Archangel Amethyst on the 23rd. That's a Wednesday, I think, this year, 23rd of September. And it's useful to know this because then you can align your prayers and your heart and your meditations to these themes. On the 24th, we're working with Healing the Earth through Archangel Uriel and Lady Archangel Donna Grace. Healing the Air on the 25th with Archangel Raphael and Lady Archangel Mary. On the 26th, Healing the Waters, Archangel Gabriel and Lady Archangel Hope. Working with the principles of love and active intelligence on the 27th as we work with Archangel Shamuel and Lady Archangel Charity. On the 28th, we're working with the principles of joy and wisdom with Archangel Jophiel and Lady Archangel Constance. And on the 29th, the culmination of this Angel Week, we're working with Archangel Michael and Lady Archangel Faith, and we're working and calling down the will of God. Now, this is an important week in every year, but it's especially significant this year because we are at a time of momentous choice and just time of decision, time when cosmic, spiritual and worldly justice are descending one way or the other. So I just bring your attention to the significance of this week and encourage you to go to those websites. I'll put a link to those websites of Lady Ananditara Sharma so that you can explore some of her teachings. And there's also a little bit of writing on my website if you use the search function and type in archangels. Yes, you'll find many teachings associated with the archangels and how relevant they are at this time of the year. Okay, the other thing that's important is the actual full moon, and I'm just going to look that up. So the full moon festival, which is always important, is when the sun gets to the 9th degree of Libra and is directly opposite the moon in the 9th degree of Aries. And this is 7 minutes past 7 in the morning on the 2nd of October, and that's Australian Eastern Standard Time. And this is also a very good time to focus your energies and to work with the light of your soul, and you can follow the through heartflow.org. You'll follow the guided meditation that Sri Nagarjuna uploads to that website. And that would probably be on the evening of the 1st of October, I'd say. Okay, so I'm going to go back now and let's explore the the chart for the moment when the sun enters into Libra, and this is on the 22nd of September this year at 11:31 p.m. And there are lots of different themes that I'll be exploring as I go through this. Yes, I'm just finding the relevant place on my computer in front of me. So just to reinforce the fact that this is the autumn equinox in the Northern Hemisphere and the spring equinox in the Southern Hemisphere, and the phase of the moon that's relevant, and the phase of the moon indicates the spiritual focus, and the phase of the moon is crescent moon, which really tells us that we have to continue to focus upon our home and our communities. And certainly in Australia, there are some parts of Australia that are in lockdown. This is Victoria, but broadly speaking, we need to attend to our home, our family, our community, and our spiritual community, and that becomes an important place of anchoring our energies. Okay, there are several things that are going on in this chart, and I'll start with the very tight square between Mercury in Libra as it squares Saturn. So if you're looking at the chart here, I'd like you to look to the 5th house. You'll notice the circle is divided into 5 segments. So you find the segment that has the number 5, and you'll see the planet Mercury. It looks like a person with a hat on. And you'll see the red line that goes from there up to Saturn. This is a tight square to Saturn. You can say almost an exact. It's a 1 degree square to Saturn. It's a 2 degree square to Pluto. It's exactly square the midpoint, and it's widely square Jupiter. So this particular square astrologically has got a lot to do with the limitations on our freedom of movement, our state borders being locked. I would say that there will be some ongoing locking up of the Australian state borders between this 3rd week of September and the 3rd week of October, because this Mercury square is ongoing and very tight. It's also connected to the mental health stress and crisis that people are undergoing. Many things. The Capricorn planets fall in the 8th house, so you could say that it's also associated with the increasing levels of debt that are being built up by our government, and no doubt governments overseas, that future generations will have to pay. And I guess I'd have to say also that potentially great karma is being accrued by certain. It could be governments, it could be corporations, it could be CEOs who are misusing the pandemic as an opportunity for feathering their own nests one way or the other. I did hear recently that some of the CEOs are getting very large payouts, and they're using the government subsidy money for that. So a great amount of karma is accrued, and or alternatively, according to the because of course this particular pattern is there globally, not in the same houses as in the Australian chart, but some nations are accruing debt and some are paying indebtedness and making good karma. What we can do on an individual level with Mercury and Saturn is focus and be very aware of the patterns that we need to change and ruts that we're in that we need to get out of, and the things that we need to commit to that are at the top of our agenda. Mercury is in Libra, and so of course there are ruts. What happens when Mercury is in Libra is that we unwittingly fall into a rut, we get comfortable somewhere and we fail to act. So we need to be very mindful of the habits and the actions that are harmful to us, and to move on and forward away from those. Okay, I notice Mercury is in a hidden pattern. This is a sesquiquadrate to the Gemini ascendant, and Saturn is in a sesquiquadrate to the Gemini ascendant, while Mercury and Saturn are in a very tight square with each other. And I refer to this pattern as an SSS pattern. You can see it in the chart as dotted red lines that go from the Capricorn planets in the 8th house down to the left-hand side where the Gemini rising is. That's the left-hand side as you're looking at the chart. That's Gemini where the red line is, and dotted lines from there back down to Mercury in the 5th house. Now this is a self-sabotage pattern. Now on an individual level we have to be very mindful that we're not self-sabotaging ourselves by allowing our ego to get the upper hand. Excuse me, by staying in rigid habits that we've outgrown, by getting in comfortable ruts, by being too dogmatic or dictatorial, or by allowing our ego to control us through the rational mind. Similarly, on the world stage, we have power games being played out between the governments, between corporations. We've got a lot of influence here with Mercury, with the rational mind, with the 5th ray, and I see the corporations and the nations racing to see who gets the vaccine first. And we've got to be very, very careful in the search for something that is helpful and healing for humanity, that it's not distorted or corrupted or used for power or for control. Yes, I see a great, great danger here associated with the karma that can be accrued by the misuse of this Mercury-Saturn square, as it causes this hidden sabotage aspect to the Gemini ascendant. Okay, moving on now, I'll just focus a little bit on the Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn, this triple conjunction in Capricorn in the 8th house in the Australian chart. And of course we have just recently, I'm doing this talk, where am I now, in early September, a couple of weeks before the sun goes into Libra. But the impact of the recession very, very strongly will be felt. It will be felt in businesses that are going to the wall. It'll be felt in people unable to pay their mortgages. And again, we have the warning for governments, for corporations, could be for landlords, for CEOs to use power correctly. Yeah? And on an individual level, the best thing that we can do with this triple conjunction in Capricorn is be very, very clear about the principles within which we are making our money, leading our lives, entering into intimate or shared financial relationships. So don't go into taking money from the bank that you know you won't be able to pay back. Don't go into exploiting, if you're a boss, exploiting workers. We need ethical approach to finances and money, and all of us need that, but especially the corporations and the governments. Okay, I'm moving on now to discuss Mars as it falls in Aries in the 11th house in this chart. Now, of course, Mars in Aries is a very, very powerful planet, but it really depends on who's in charge. When Mars is in Aries and the souls has it harnessed, then it's transformational and pioneering and clears the path ahead on a soul level. But when it's being utilised by the ego, then it becomes selfishness and self-will and, to hell with others and looking after number one. And of course we have a great battle going on here in Australia, you could say, not only on the individual level, but between certain states. Some states are supposedly COVID-free, others are full of the virus. There's a lot of competition, there's a lot of us and them going on, there's a lot of selfishness. There are people on one side of the equation very, very concerned about the loss of democracy and civil liberties. There are people on the other side of the equation very, very concerned about selfish people who are meeting in groups, whether it's football or rallies or whatever, potentially infecting others. So we have all points of view opposed with this need for balance between how do we respect authority, how do we respect what the group needs, but what about civil liberties and what about public health? Remembering that we are moving through the sun in Libra, and the message is to follow an even path, follow a harmonious path, not to harm ourselves, not to harm others, to act not for the selfishness but for the good of all, but from the heart and from the higher consciousness. So we have this T-square, this is between Mars squaring Saturn and Pluto, opposite Mercury, being played out on our screens nightly. You know, we see the virus count, we see the double standards going on. Wealthy people can somehow or other get around the laws. We have to see people being arrested. What did I see a couple of days ago? A woman organising an online peaceful protest around concern to do with democratic rights, being arrested at home in front of her children. We have both extremes of this going on, and I think what's required is balance, balance, balance. Okay, let's look at the moon in Sagittarius as it sits in the chart conjunct the descendant. Now, astrologically, the moon always governs the ego. That's my ego and your egos and a nation's ego. And it's sitting in the hidden shadow point. That's the cusp of the seventh house. So it's in a point that's very favourable to the ego, and it's a position associated with the ego. Now, the worst of the moon in Sagittarius is out and out racism, you know, and we've seen that globally. We continue to see this conflagration erupting in many parts of the planet, all over North America. We've seen it a couple of months ago with the Black Lives Matter and the Aboriginal Lives Matter. The challenge, I think, with the moon in Sagittarius here is that the people who are standing on either side of the fence are so righteous that they fail to recognise and to respect people who are on the other side of the fence, that even if we disagree with each other, we need to find a respectful, tolerant middle path where we're not maintaining superiority of, look, it could be Queenslanders are better than Victorians. There's a lot of this going on. You know, instead of it being xenophobia against people of colour, it's also here in Australia, people state against state. So we need to find a middle path where we're not taking the moral high ground, because the tendency to take the moral high ground and to miss the middle path of tolerance is very great where the moon is sitting here in Sagittarius in this chart. The best way we can work with that is simply refuse to get involved in blaming others or seeing the world through an us and them, but look within and find your own shadow and own that. Okay, moving on now to talk about Neptune, the planet Neptune, as it's sitting conjunct the Pisces midheaven. Now, the way forward, I'm just looking at the chart and I've lost it. Where is it? There it is. So Neptune is 4 degrees, yes, 4 degrees off the midheaven, conjunct the midheaven, and in an individual's chart when that happens, we often struggle to find the way forward. Things aren't clear, and the message when Neptune sits there is that you can't use the rational mind to orient your way forward. Neptune is reminding us that the heart is the compass for the forward direction. It's reminding the government of that. It's reminding all of us of that. And of course, if we fail to find our heart and use it as our compass, then we fall prey to manipulation, coercion, out and out lies, mistruth, delusion. Yeah? So we either use the compass, the heart as a compass, to navigate our way forward, or we are confused and we don't know what's up and what's down. Now, not only is Neptune doing this in the chart, and therefore we require a government, because the midheaven has a connection to governments and also to the role of parenting. So parents need to find the heart as a compass to take their children forward in uncertain times. The government needs to govern from the heart, not to govern from half-truths or delusionary matters. But not only is Neptune on the midheaven, but is also in a 5-degree square to the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius. Now, Neptune moves very, very slowly, and for this reason, the square to Neptune is to do with the virus that is global, the virus that is ongoing, the virus that has been used as a catalyst to bring to humanity's attention all the inequalities and all the injustices and all the cracks that people are falling through in their lives. And we're seeing these revealed everywhere. So the beauty of the virus is that it's exposing the underbelly of humanity's living on the earth, how we treat the earth, how we treat each other, how we treat animals. All of this. What did I hear yesterday? A boat of many thousands of cattle capsized, and humans and the animals all drowned off the shore of Japan. That's just another example. Now, the square between Neptune and the nodes gets tighter and tighter as we get closer to Christmas. And you could say that if humanity failed to use the heart as a compass for the way forward, then the virus or the delusions or the misinformation, the distortions, they will overtake us. So on the one hand, it's to do with the community transmission. In the Australian chart, it falls in the 9th house, and so therefore we can see that Europe and other countries are either approaching or already feeling the second wave of the virus as it runs its course. Equally, Australia's attempt to establish a bubble, whether it's a Tasman bubble or a South Pacific bubble, so that we can have travel and trade with New Zealand or the South Pacific, I think that's going to be very difficult to establish. Certainly it won't happen between late October and late November as the sun's moving through Libra. Okay, I'm moving on now to talk about the Earth. This is the Dharma point in the chart, and along with Chiron. Let's go back to the chart in the 10th house. Now, the circle with the cross through it, this is the Earth, the Dharma point, directly opposite Libra, and it's in a wide 7.5-degree conjunction with Aries in the 10th house. So everybody knows that we are in uncharted territory. And the Chiron and the Dharma are talking about the way we navigate the uncharted territory. And it requires a different way of using power, a different way of using money, a different way of finding compassion for those who have a different point of view or a different colour skin or live in a different state. This is, you hear lots of people talking about the need to pivot their business or the need to be creative and innovative with a new way. Well, I can't do this, but I can do that. So clearly that's what we all have to do. Just because we had a plan and we thought that was the way our life was going to go, doesn't mean that that's the way it's going post, this chart that starts on the 22nd of September and goes through till the end of October. Yes, because clearly the chaos that's ensuing and the unsettled lack of direction is an opportunity for us to come up with new approach to life, new approach to living peacefully with each other, new approach to walking gently and carefully on the earth, new approach to how we use the resources, new approach to all kinds of things. And this requires that we get out of our own way, recognise our own shadow, change some of our deep-seated prejudices or beliefs or fears, and find the courage to begin to follow what Neptune is asking us to do, the heart, to use the heart as a compass. So these are some of the themes coming from the Chiron and Aries. Yes, okay, I'll talk briefly now about the Gemini ascending. Not only do we have Gemini ascending, but we have the North Node in Gemini, and we have a very lovely pattern. And the pattern is Venus is in Leo, and it makes a sextile to the North Node. Now, Venus in this chart is operating very beautifully in the sign of Leo. I can find it. There it is, yes, it's in the 3rd house, and it has a blue lines in the chart to the moon and to the South Node, and this is about recognising the fact that yes, we are human, and we need to reach out and extend beyond our comfort zones to share joy, love, optimism, wisdom, hope. Now, Venus is in the 3rd house, which says that Australians need to do it within their own local community and network. So again, we have that theme of, think globally but act locally. Act locally within your neighbourhood, within your family. And of course, we've seen a lot of this, a lot of generosity, a lot of giving, a lot of sharing, a lot of community outreach occurring. Now, Venus is also in an inconjunct, a yod. And it's very hard to see in the chart, but there's a dotted yellow line that goes from Venus in the 3rd house up to Neptune near the midheaven, and another dotted yellow line that goes across to Jupiter. And this is asking that we learn the lessons of excessive materialism or excessive use of power or coercion, or excessive materialism in however we're using that, and to take time out. We need to suspend the life we thought we were going to have, take time out to make sure that our higher selves, that the way you can find your higher self is that it is evidenced in the things that bring you great joy. When you feel most joyful, you are following the light of your soul. So this yod is asking us to stay the hand of control, habit, materialism, power, tune in, find the heart within, find our own wisdom, and apply and share that loving, joyful approach within our neighbourhood. And in this way, we have an opportunity to clear some of our old karma. And often the best way forward on the spiritual path is to look for somebody else who is in greater need than you and to help them. Yeah, we have to learn to live in love. There are 2 more patterns that I'll talk about here in the chart. One of them is the mystic rectangle, and it's between the North Node in Gemini, Mercury in Libra, and Mars in Aries. Now, the way you'll see the mystic rectangle is that it's a rectangle lying almost horizontal, but not quite. It's on a bit of an angle, and it's blue lines, creating and it goes from the 1st house, where the North Node is, down to Mercury in the 5th house, up to the South Node in the 7th house, and across to Mars in the 11th house. And you'll see the rectangle has some trines and stars. Now, this is an opportunity to change. There's nothing cut and dried. We are the masters of our own fate. We have the capacity to change our destiny. As a nation, as a family, as a race, as a human species. And the way we can change our destiny is to get out of our comfort zones, find a way of hearing the still, small voice of your soul that requires silence and stillness and meditation and attunement, aligning to like-minded people. This could be through a community choir. It could be through a loving connection with the family. It could be through an online earth healing service, and begin to move forward as a group through the middle of chaos with faith and hope. Mars is in Aries, and it has a great capacity to engender hope when we align with the group heart. We can't move forward as individuals. So ask yourself, where is the group that brings the best out in me? Where do I feel that I have the greatest capacity to be the best that I can be? And who are the people who foster that? And how can I share the best that I have with others? And this is the way we can use the mystic rectangle. And I think it's about sharing. It's about using discrimination. That's the North Node in Gemini. It's about recognising that small things matter. It's about being willing to give to others to help lessen their burden. And it's about a willingness to extend the hand to others who previously we may have judged for whatever reason. These are wonderful ways that we can utilise the mystic rectangle to progress in this month as the sun moves through Libra. So the energy that we're working with there is courage to walk a balanced, harmless path. It requires this alignment to our inner light. We can work by invoking the light of justice, the seventh ray, the light of truth, the fifth ray, the light of harmony, the fourth ray. And the final pattern in the chart that I will talk about is Uranus, which is in Taurus, hanging around the 12th house cusp. And it's in a hidden pattern, and one of these SS patterns. It's got a semi-square to the north node and a sesquiquadrate to the south node. So Uranus, when it's in Taurus, is bringing in the divine will, your soul's purposeful will, which of course is different to your ego's will, attempting to change your group dynamics. Okay? So if you find that there are people in society that you've previously judged or condemned or considered them to be the other, then change your response to them. This is asking humanity to change before it's too late. This is a pattern that speaks to all of humanity, Uranus, because the north and the south node are about the collective evolution of humanity as a species, and Uranus in Taurus holds this potent Shambhala energy. So there's a fairly urgent warning to humanity to change, and for humanity to wake up and a humanity to be discriminating. Okay, interesting times in this month ahead. I think I'll leave the astrological energies of this talk, and I shall move now on to the esoteric nature of Libra as we understand it through the myth of Hercules. I have been using these myths. I think I might have started out in Taurus and we're up to Libra now. Now, when we use Libra on an ego or a personality level, then the keynote for what happens is that we have our free will, we have our choice, and we use it. And the keynote is let choice be made. Now, if you were to look backwards over the decades of your life, you would realise that some of the choices, if you had your time over, you'd make a different choice. Yeah? We have free will and we use it. Yeah? But we have to be very, very careful how we use it, and particularly in 2020. Now, when the soul is operating through and vibrating well with Libra, then the keynote is I choose the way which leads between the two great lines of force. And if you know the glyph of Libra, you'll realise that there are two parallel lines with what looks like two hands in prayer position sitting in the middle. And this glyph is a symbol to do with a balance. Balance between the head and the heart, balance between the worldly and the physical and the emotional, balance between the lower mind and the higher mind. Balance in all things is the way forward. And this reminds me of the teachings of Gautama Buddha, yes, who taught about the Noble Eightfold Path, the balance. Okay, so I'll talk to you now about the labour of Hercules, often known as Labour the Seventh. And Hercules is given by the holy ones, the presiding ones, a task for every sign of the zodiac. And the task that he has to perform in the sign of Libra is the capture of the Erymanthian, I think that's how you pronounce it, Erymantian, Erymanthian boar. Okay, so I think what I might do here is simply read to you the labour. And as the power of Libra passes through Hercules, he is instructed to go forth and capture the wild boar, salvage a ravaged country, yet take the time to eat. To aid him, Apollo gives Hercules a brand new bow to use, but remembering the slaughter that he'd committed in his last task in Virgo, he leaves it behind and proceeds unarmed, except for his trusty club. In search for the boar, Hercules comes upon his friend Pholus, who is one of a group of centaurs, who invites him to share a cask of wine, and both of them call to another centaur, Cheiron, to join them. I don't know if Cheiron is meant to be Chiron, maybe it's a different spelling. Anyway, the noise of the ensuing revelry alerts the other centaurs, who are incensed because the gods had given them the wine to be partaken only when all the centaurs were present. So this results in a fierce battle, and again Hercules kills, this time the friends with whom he had drunk. Hercules then escapes to the mountains and renews his search for the wild boar. Now, as the boar proves difficult to track, Hercules sets a snare and lays in waiting. After many long hours, the boar finally comes his way and is captured. Hercules wrestles and tames the fierce beast, and seizing its two hind legs, he drives it before him down the snowy mountain slope on its two front legs, laughing and singing and dancing on his way. And those who see the two of them descending the mountain join in the laughter, for it is a bizarre and a comical sight. Well, what a peculiar myth. So what on earth does this mean? Well, the way to understand these myths, because of course even though they're ancient Greek, they are just as relevant today as they were then. So let's take the aspects of the myth one by one and explore them. Now, the wild boar relates to our ego's desire nature, our astral nature, our sensual nature. The ravaged country. Well, you could say that is the world when the ego's in charge, or it could be a particular country when the ego's in charge rather than the soul, or it could be your life when your ego's in control. Apollo reminds Hercules to take the time to eat. So clearly we have to look after the body. We can't neglect the body in favour of spirit. Yeah? Okay. We require a balanced, mindful approach to life. Now, he's given a bow. And I suppose, and he decides not to take the bow, but instead to take his club. So to me, the bow represents a tool for the journey. So I guess what I would say with that is it's no point heading on through the spiritual journey, particularly in the sign of Libra, without the appropriate tools for the journey. So what are the tools of the journey? They could be your mantras, your prayers, your meditation, your spiritual groups, your choir, your tai chi, your yoga, but make sure you've got some tools for the journey. Now, in the story, Hercules meets the two centaurs. Now, the centaurs, I'm sure you've seen them, they're half animal and half man. And of course, they represent the half animal and half divine aspect of ourselves. We are, in fact, we are soul and ego, but which one is in control? And that's the $6 million question as the sun's going through Libra. Is there a balance, and which one is going to come out on top? Is it the soul that will come out on top, or is it the ego that will come out on top? So he meets the two centaurs, his friends, and they represent the body and the mind. And what does he do? He completely gets distracted and forgets the task. He's been sent off to capture the wild boar, but here he is in drunken revelry with his friends. You could say the lower senses are being satiated. Yes, and this, of course, is a difficulty for people with a lot of Libra. They get distracted by the world. They get distracted by the wine and women and the song or whatever it is, and forget the fact that they're on a spiritual quest. And then, of course, the other centaurs, the other beings who are half animal, half human, they come and they say, well, that wine was supposed to be for the group. It was supposed to be sacred. It wasn't for drunken revelry. Yeah, so we've got to be very mindful that we are balanced, that we don't go off into our version of drunken revelry or distraction. So it ends up in a battle, and what happens? Lo and behold, he kills his friends. Yeah, so if we're not careful, we can harm the very people that we love, who we've met upon our journey. These are the tests and the challenges in the sign of Libra, to choose appropriately the networks, the circles, the friends, and don't get distracted in any forms of revelry to excess, not all revelry, but to excess that will take us away from our spiritual quest. And certainly don't get involved in destroying the life quest of another. So after a while, he escapes the battle and goes back to the task of hunting the wild boar. Now he locates the boar in the mountains. Now, the mountains are interesting because they indicate that we have to go into the higher mind, that we can't move through the spiritual tasks associated with Libra through the rational mind or through the body. We need the higher mind. And he uses a snare, so some skill is required. So to me, we need to gain skill, think of it as control, of our higher mind. How do we do this? Through contemplation, concentration, meditation, higher study. He is successful with his bare hands, but he shows mercy, and he doesn't kill the boar. He brings the boar back, holding it by its two hind legs, and walks it back. So there's a degree of mercy, and it's also very humorous. So when he rides back to his teacher, great humour ensues. So you could say, in a nutshell, the Libran lessons are to respond to our soul vibration, to go higher into the mountains, into the higher mind, refuse to be distracted, have a balanced approach to wine, woman and song, all of us, stay on task, find balance in all things, find friends who are on the path, not friends who will help us get distracted. And the way I look at it is that the humour part of it, it seems to me that we need to not take ourselves so seriously. Yes, because it's a very important sign of the zodiac for integration and recognition of the continued forward movement. Any kind of rut is very dangerous when we have a lot of Libra, and certainly as we're about to enter into the Libran time of the year, let's just take the teachings from this myth with us. And remember that the keynote for the soul is I choose the way which leads between the two great lines of force. Yes, and I'm reminded here of the wonderful book that Tarajoti Govinda wrote, Joy of Enlightenment, which is a modern expose on the teachings of Lord Gautama Buddha and the Noble Eightfold Path. Yes. Okay, this has been Chandra Easton speaking about the year that we're moving through and the spiritual tests of the sign of Libra. And of course, I work with individuals, so if you would like to know what's going on in your life or to have the map that helps you to navigate and move forward in the year ahead, please feel free to get in touch through starastrologyhealing.com, and of course also work as an ascension healer and an angelic clairvoyant. Okay, lovely to connect. Bye for now.